All right. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this week's live class. This week we'll be having a review of the previous topics we've learned in Python so far, just to help us get more understanding before we progress to the next set of topics. Now, in order for us to do a revision on these topics, we are going to create a program that would require all the topics that we may not be able to do all, but most of the topics that we have learned so far will be used in this program. Now, for the program, we're going to build a simple program that allows us to look up information about students. We'll learn about variables, data types, lists, dictionaries, and how to interact with users through input and output. So we've done some of these topics before, but we're just going to make use of them in this program just to give us or to refresh our memory about them. We'll also learn how to make decisions in our code using conditional statements, because we are moving to more complex topics. So I think it would be a good opportunity to introduce conditional statements in this lesson. Now, what the program does, our program will store some basic information about a school and its students, and will allow a user to type in a student's name, and our program will look up and display information about that student if it exists. Finally, the program will display some general information about the school as well, just for extra context to give more information. All right, so we've seen variables earlier in this course, in the Python course. And remember, variables are like containers that store data. You give them a name and assign a value to them. And we've seen data types. We've seen data types tells us so we've seen data types, and data types tells us what kind of data is stored in a variable. For example, a name is stored as a string text, and a number of students is going to be stored as an integer. So let's try and create those variables. So we'll see how these data types are stored. So our first variable here for our program will be the school name, and we're going to be having a string data type for our school name, and the school name is Springfield. Springfield High. So this, if we recall, this is a string and this is a variable. And then we want to have another variable. And this is for our number integer data type. And the variable here will be number of students. So the total number of students in this school, we are just going to estimate that we have 1,000 number of students in the school. And let's just give more information. So we want to have average GPA. And we recall that we also have different type of number data types. So here we have the string data type, we have the int data type, and then we have the float data type. So these are to refresh our memories on the different data types and about variables that we've learned so far. Now, we are still building our program, and we're going to be looking at the next step now. So just to refresh our memory, school name here is equal to Springfield, which is the name of the school. So we're creating a variable named school name and assigning it to the value Springfield High. Now, this value is a string, which is a sequence of characters enclosed in quotes, as we recall, and also for the numbers as well. So next, now we want to look at data types, the collection type of data type. So first, let's work with lists. And recall that a list is a collection of items stored in a single variable. So a list can hold multiple values, and these values can be accessed individually, as we have seen from the previous lessons. So I'm going to create a variable. Names. Actually, David. So here we have student names. This variable is a list that contains names of students. So lists are written with square brackets, and each item in the list is separated by comma. Now the list, John, Alice, Bob, Charlie, David, stores 5 names, and each name here is a string. So recall that we can have other data types here, but what we have here is a string. So now let's look at another collection type that we'll be using to build this program. So all these variables and collection types will be used in this program. So the next collection type here is for dictionary. So recall, a dictionary is another type of collection that stores data in key value pairs, and each key is linked to a value, and you can use the key to access the value. So I'm going to create a new variable here. This will be student info. Now, I want to do something different from what we did the last time we used dictionaries. So I'm going to type this first so we'll see. I'm going to copy all of this. Now for Alice, this will be 22. Grade should be B. And favorite subjects should be history. So what we have here, I'm going to extend the screen so we see everything. Okay, so we have student info as a variable. This variable is a dictionary. I know it's different from the dictionary we saw last week, but this variable is a dictionary, and the value is another dictionary. So we have a key and we have the value. And the value here is another dictionary that contains detailed information about this student. For example, now we have here John, and we have age equal to 20, grade equal to A, favorite subject equal to science. So John is the key. The value here is another dictionary, which is age, grade, and favorite subject. Now, this inner dictionary holds information about John's age, John's grade, and John's favorite subject. So this is another complex way of creating dictionaries. And same too for Alice. This is the second student, and we have the Alice as the key and the values as inner dictionaries. Is there any confusion or question? If you have any question, please feel free to ask as we progress. Okay. Now we want to take input. So remember, we are trying to build a program where we can check for students in a particular school, and we're going to get information on those students. So we're going to use input function here that would allow us to take input from the user. So whatever the user types will be stored in the variable that we'll create for this input, and we're going to use a string method to format the inputs. And I will explain why we are going to do that. So our variable here for our inputs will be student name. Now, there's something we need to always remember. When we use inputs in Python like this, it's always takes in data as string data type. So if you want to make use of an information or an input from a user as a different data type, you have to convert it during the process of taking that data. So just like we want to do here, we're not converting this from a string, but I want to make sure that it's not case sensitive. So our input here would be enter a student's name. Now, I'm going to use a method. So recall we've done the different string methods, and this is a string. So we can apply this method to the string that will be entered here. So here I want to make sure that the title is taken into consideration. So remember, we have the name stored beginning with a capital letter, like we have John starting with a capital letter, Alice, Bob, Charles, Charlie, and David. So we always had the names beginning with capital letter. Now, if we do not try to use this method, by the time a user tries to enter a name to check for the student's record, it's going to tell the user that the student is not student information is not available, or depending on the error message we give. So it's going to tell the user there will be or there isn't a student with such name. So in order for us to prevent any errors such as the user entering a name that doesn't start, because the user wouldn't know, but because it has been stored in this format, so the user may start the name with a small letter, and that will result to the error not finding a student. So in order to prevent that, we are using a method to prevent the inputs from being anything else but a title to start with a capital letter. So this will make sure that no matter the letter, if it's a capital letter or a small letter, it's going to always start with a capital letter. So the program will be able to find the students. Okay, so now we're making progress in the program. We want to look at conditional statements now. So I said that earlier that since we are progressing in the course, we are going to be seeing some more complex topics. That's why we are doing these revisions for us to catch up as much as we have learned before going to complex topics. Now, we want to look at conditional statements, but this is just going to be a peek view of conditional statements. When we get to that part in the course, we are going to learn more about it. So for us to be able to make use of this program, we need to use the conditional statements. So it gives the system some kind of conditions that it would follow, or an algorithm. So conditional statements allow us to make decisions in our code. We can check if a condition is true and then execute different blocks of code based on the results. So I'm going to give the condition here. Now we use the conditional statements with the key word if, else, in. Those are the keywords for conditional statements. and elif as well. So here I want to say if student name, so since we will be looking for students and their informations, so we want to say if student name, so recall that we already had the inputs to store the student's name in this variable. So we want to check if the student's name is in our list of our student info. That's the dictionary. So I'm going to type the dictionary. So if the name is in the dictionary, which we've created, we want the program to do something. So what we're doing here is just a simple print statement that will give the information. So we want to use a formatted string. We're going to use a formatted string, and we want to say that the program should print the name, which is the student's name, because the student's name is in the dictionary. So it's going to print out the student's name. And we're going to add more information. So let's make sure that this goes to a second line. So I'll use another print statement for this. So and also I want to print grade. Student's name. Okay, so this second print is going to be a new line that will tell the user the grade of this student, and we want to get the information from the student info dictionary. So what we are doing here, so okay, let me complete the statement so it makes sense when I explain it. So we're going to have another print statement. Okay, next, I want to print the favorite subject. Now, this is the print statement that we're going to get if the name is in the dictionary. Then we want to have the next condition if the name is not in the dictionary. So we use the else. So we're going to say, sorry. All right. So let's look at what we've done here. Now, the if students, if students name is student info, this this line checks if the name the user entered, which is going to be in this student's name, exists in the student's information dictionary. Now, why we need to check if the student's name is in our dictionary before we try to access their information is to avoid errors. So we need to check first because we can't give what we don't have. Now, the print function or the print statement that will be the next condition if the name is in the student's info. This line is just basically going to print the name of the student after it's confirmed it's in the dictionary. And why we use the print to display the student information is we have the formatted string. So it allows us to include the value of the student's name in the printed text. And for the other print statements, we just the way we are getting the name, just the way we are getting the name from the student's name. Here, we want to also print more information about that student that are in the dictionary. So we have for age, and the age now is in the student's info. So recall how we created a dictionary. That's why we are printing it differently here. Okay, so we have the age, and it's going to get the information from the student's info. And here we're just going to call the student's name first, then we will get the age from the student's name. So remember, we have a list. So this list here is the student's name. That is going to get the name from the student's name, which is, for example, if we are searching for John, and also we're going to get the age. So it's the same for others too as well. And then the else statement is if the student's name is not found in the code inside this block runs, printing a message. This is going to print a message saying we don't have this information in the database, or the student's not found in the database. Now, the else statement provides an alternative action when the if condition isn't met, ensuring that the program handles cases where the name isn't found. So this is a quick view of conditional statements. Now, there are several ways we can do this, but this is just for this particular program. We just want to just use print statements to give the conditions that are met, or to display the conditions that are met. So let's check for the list membership. So we're going to use another conditional statement here. So what we're doing here is that we say if student's name is in student names. So remember, we created a list for student names. So we want to check now if student's name in students names. So these are the different. There's an S in the list, and the one that will be entered does not have an S. So if student's name in students names, this line is checking if the student's name is in the students list. And we why we do this is we may want to verify if the student is part of a specific group or class. So this will just help us determine confirm their membership list. And then we want to print the student's name. So this is just confirming that the student with the name is in the list of students' names. Else, if the student is not, then it's going to say that students with names. Now we're just going to add. Okay, so this was meant to be below. Sorry, that would have caused a problem. Okay, so next, we want to just print some school informations, just an extra informations. So I'm making use of all the variables that we created earlier at the beginning of the program. Average GPA. Okay. Now, recall from the when we had the string lessons, we talked about this escape character. So remember, this creates a new line before we start printing the school information. It's just going to make the output look clean and organized. And then the print school name, it is just going to print the school name because we've created this variable earlier. And at the end of the program, it's nice to give the user some general context about the schools, such as these names, number of students, and the GPA, just to make the context look more organized. So now we're going to go through the program again. So far, we've been able to touch some of the topics, and we've also seen complex way to also work on some of them. So here we started with variables, and we created the school name variable. Then we gave the value for the school name, and also we also created variable for the data type ints, and also a variable for floats as well. Now we use this to refresh our memories on variables and data types. And next, we looked at collection type. We looked at lists where we passed the names of students into a student names list. And also we created a dictionary, which is our second collection type. And we created a complex dictionary where we have a key and the values as inner dictionaries. And they are assigned to the name John. And then we want to utilize these data by enforcing them in the program, whereby we request for an input to be stored in the student's name. So here the input, we made sure that when the user enters the name, the case sensitivity is going to be fixed, whereby if the user uses a small letter, a lowercase letter, it's not going to say that the student is not in the database, because we've made sure that the string method here would start the text. We change the text, whatever type, uppercase or lowercase, is going to make sure that it starts with a capital letter. So remember, this title string method capitalizes the first letter of every word. So the names that will be entered here, or the name that will be entered here, would definitely start with a capital letter, just the way it has been stored in the list and dictionaries. And then we looked at the conditional statement that checks if the name that will be entered is stored in, if we have it in the student info dictionary, And if it's there, we just want to print the name, saying we just want to print a statement says the name equal to the student's name that has been entered, and the age is we're getting it from the student's info. Sorry about this. So the age that we're getting from the student's info, and we want to bind it to the student's name, so which is the key, and then we get the age. I'm wondering why this is displaying this way. There seems to be a problem here. Unmatched. Oh, okay. I think there's something wrong.
Excuse me. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, it's maybe double, yeah. Double quote.
Yeah, okay. You noticed it too. Yes, I was thinking towards it. Thank you very much. Just realized that it's affected. So it's good we also see that this is an error that could possibly happen where we use small quotes mixed with double quotes. So the double quotes is for the formatted string, and the single quotes is for the variables we have inside. So this will give us the age, and then we're going to print for the grade. So the grade now will be equal to the value we have for grade for the student's name. So we're trying to bind the student's name to the grade. So if it's this student, John, it's going to give us the student's name and the grade for John. And then we have the else statement that gives the information that the student with the name is not found in the database. And then we also want to check for our list as well. So we are checking for the list that if the student name is in the list of students, we should print that this person is in this particular group of students. So this list here is just, for instance, let's say this is a particular group of a class. I want to know not just only if the student is part of the school and the information, we want to know which class. So this is just for an instance for that. So we will check and we'll say that the student is in the list of students' names. All right, so hopefully this works. So I'm going to save and run our code. So now the input is asking for a name. Now, because we have said that the title method here would make sure that the name starts with an uppercase, I'm just going to start with a small letter to test that it works properly. So the name now, I'm going to expand this. So the name is John. I'm going to enter. Okay. So we have an error and age 20 grade. So line 22. Okay. The right subjects. Okay, so let's see the variable we used for that. So favorite subjects. Okay, so I used a small letter. So I'm going to change this to small letter so it's consistent. Check for the other. Okay, so I'll do this again. Now the error has been fixed. So because John is in the list of students, it gives us the name, John, the age, the grade, and the favorite subject that has been spelled out in the dictionary, and then the school information. So I notice there's something else that isn't displaying here. Okay, so we're also going to test this to see for if the student is not in the list. So I want to check. Let's use a name that is not in the list. Let's just say Sarah. So the error message which we created says, sorry, students Sarah. Okay, so this is a wrong formatted string. So it's supposed to say, sorry, Sarah is not found in the database, and Sarah is not in the list of students' names. So these are the school informations we added just for extra context. So if we do this right, I'm going to save this again and run. And it says enter student's name. Let's use Alice. So now we get the complete information for Alice, because Alice is in the list and Alice is also in the dictionary. So it says name Alice, age 22, with grade B, as favorite subjects as history, and Alice is in the list of students' names. And because we used the escape key to break the line, it gives us a space for the next line to have this information well formatted and presented. So this is just a simple program that checks for students if a student is in a school database or the class of a school or not, and then gives us information about that student. So far we've been able to look at the few topics here. So is there any question or confusion you may have?
No. Hello?
Oh, yes.
But
yes.
no question for this, for what you've just done. But the area I want to talk about is about interpolation. I don't really know how to go about interpolating that if you're giving a list and all that.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Okay, or if it's not here, then maybe.
Yes, interpolation list.
Okay, so because of time, we're just going to do that maybe 101 since you have that challenge, and we'll look at that after the class.
It's okay.
All right, so far we've learned how to create variables, store different types of data. We explored collection like lists and dictionaries, store multiple pieces of related data, and we use input function to interact with users and conditional statements to make decisions in our code. And now we have the information displayed with the print statements. So we can keep practicing, write our own codes, experiments on our own to see what kind of program we can create. So this will help us get used to these basic topics before we move to the complex ones. All right, so we're going to stop here. And if you have any challenges, just like the challenge Ms. Choma just talked about, you can always reach out to any of the admin in the WhatsApp group. All right, bye everyone. Have a lovely weekend.
You too.
Thank you.